Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being part of this webinar. We're very happy to welcome you today. So, as you all know, today's webinar will be about the Streets for Life. And let me just share my screen. So as you know, today we'll be talking about the speed management, environmental benefits, and also road safety policies in Rwanda around the 30 km/h, which is the speed limit that is part of the UN Global Road Safety Week. And today, our agenda will be like this. We're going to start with the welcoming remarks from the president of Healthy People Rwanda, which is the NGO that actually organized this webinar today. And we'll have a small recap of the activities that Healthy People Rwanda has carried out throughout that week. And also, we'll have 3 presentations after that, one on speed management, another one on environmental benefits of speed reduction, and also another one showing us the road safety policies and laws in Rwanda. And then after that, we'll have a question and answers session. So welcome everybody. I hope you're going to have fun because it's really a good package and it is interesting. I promise you, you're going to learn a lot from our webinar. So without further ado, let us welcome Dr. Innocent Nzeyimana for his welcoming remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elise, for the introduction. Good afternoon all, and good morning or good evening for those in different time zone. As Elise said, I'm Dr. Innocent Nzeyimana. I'm the current president and co-founder of Healthy People Rwanda. Healthy People Rwanda was born in 2009, but was registered as an NGO in 2013. Our main goal is to contribute to the health development in Rwanda, and we do that through different programs. One of them being road safety and first aid program, which has been one of our top priorities since 2016. Since then, we have implemented many projects related to road safety advocacy and education. We've also joined different international networks, including the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety, which has been a very big resource and development motivation to us by providing learning opportunities and networking. In 2019, we signed an MOU with Rwanda National Police to work together on road safety initiatives. And it has also eased our advocacy work. At the occasion of the 5th UN Global Road Safety Week, which came short after signing the MOU, we mobilized the police to celebrate that week. And it was really perfectly done, as it has gathered different stakeholders and road users has been sensitized about road safety. Right after that week, the government agreed to start a year-long campaign that most of you know, which was named Gerayo Amahoro. It literally means arrive safely. It has been a really powerful campaign, and that campaign has shown the political will of Rwandan government to promote road safety. And the preliminary data of the campaign evaluation has shown a significant impact on reduction of road crashes and road users' behaviors. This year's UN Global Road Safety Week which has ended this money on the 23rd, was not celebrated as wished here in Rwanda because of COVID-19, but the police have shown interest in supporting the reduction of speed limit in specific areas, but also they have clarified that their main role is enforcement. In Rwanda, speed management is one of the emphasized area in road safety, as it is seen through different initiatives like speed governors in all public and big vehicles, and introduction of automated speed cameras, which are being installed all over the country. I think you are all aware of that. With the present political will of our government, we hope even more measures aiming at securing our roads and protecting vulnerable road users will be implemented. Today, I'm grateful for our speakers who have accepted to share their experience. I'm sure we'll learn much about road safety policies in Rwanda, speed management, and its environmental benefits. I welcome you all in this webinar, and feel free to interact through chat, and your questions will be answered after the presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Innocent, for such insightful welcoming remarks. As you've seen, we're going to have the presentation on the recap, but before we go through that, as he just mentioned, if you have questions throughout the presentations, what you're going to do is just place it in the chat. We're going to bring it up accordingly at the end of all the presentations in the Q&A session. So right now, we're going to take like 3 seconds. Everybody, I'm going to request you to turn your videos on. We're going to take a picture, a remembrance picture for this webinar. So I would request everybody to turn on their videos.
Yes, and please put some smile as well.
Okay.
Great. I think that's it. Thank you so much. Now going to have on the recap of Global Road Safety Week and some of the activities that were done by Health People Rwanda. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, so my name is Semana Higwa Elise, and I am the Program Officer of Healthy People Rwanda, and I'll be the moderator for this webinar, and also going to take you through some of the activities that Healthy People Rwanda has carried out throughout this 6th UN Global in Rwanda. So I'm going to tackle the objective of our campaign and why the 30 km/h, and a few activities we've been able to carry out, and also lessons that we learned throughout the implementation. So our objective here in Rwanda was to advocate for 30 km/h speed limit, especially at school zones and also road traffic crashes, black spots in Rwanda. As you can see, we have Dr. Innocent on our right, who actually took part of the campaign. And as you can see, our slogan was to slow down and save lives. So why 30 kilometers per hour? It was agreed in the third Global Ministerial Conference on Road Safety that 30 kilometers per hour can actually save lives. And thus, it was among the Stockholm Declaration as the resolution number 11 to set the 30 kilometers per hour speed limit, especially in roads where vehicles and people mix. As you can see, the reason why is, as you can see the right side, the picture shows how if there is an accident and the car hits people, on 30 kilometers per hour, there is a risk of one person dying, while you can see how the number of people will increase as you go up the speed limit. And actually, it can also, slowing down can save lives. It also has environmental benefits, which will be tackled further by another speaker. But this is actually why 30 kilometers per hour was focused on this year. This is also another graph that shows the importance of 30 kilometers per hour. This graph shows the probability of death in pedestrians. And you can see that as you move to the right, the chart tends to go up, which shows that as you increase in the speed limit, then the fatality risk of the pedestrians tend to increase, which means more people are going to die as you increase the speed limit. So in other countries that have already implemented the 30 kilometers per hour, I name just a few, like Germany, Denmark, London, and also Canada. It has shown that there is a reduction of road traffic injuries and deaths that is caused by reducing the speed limit to 30 kilometers per hour, which is what we are advocating for here in Rwanda. So what were our activities throughout that week? As I mentioned, it was from 17 May to 23rd May. It was just 1 week, but the advocacy is still ongoing. So a few activities that we were able to implement during that week was we started with a social media campaign, and we had some posters designed. We had some shareable messages that went through WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms to share the message, to spread the word about this 30 kilometers per hour. We also had 2 YouTube videos. I'm hoping that you have seen them, and if you haven't, I'm going to paste the links in the chat later. So we used the online platforms because COVID-19 restrictions couldn't allow us to have the face-to-face campaigns as we were hoping to. As you can see on your right, there is a picture of 2 children who took part in the campaign. So we took these kinds of pictures and we shared them online to spread the word about this campaign that was ongoing. So these are other pictures. We involved motorcyclists, involved medical students from Huye district. We involved many stakeholders within this online campaign. We also involved the media, and we were able to have a talk on the Huye Arabia Rwanda Broadcasting Agency post. We were able to have some time and talked about the 30 kilometers per hour, and also encourage people to reduce the speed, especially when they're using roads where even people can also use. We also had a paper written by Kigali Today that was around the UN Global Road Safety Week, and also our advocacy for the 30 kilometers per hour around school zones and also in road traffic crash black spots. So we also had a community engagement. The way we did it was online. We created a Google form, and we put the link that led to the Streets for Life open letter. So this letter is being signed on was being signed worldwide, and so we took part in that by making sure that we spread this Google form in every WhatsApp group, and we use Twitter and other social media so that the community can also have a say in this campaign that was going on. We also had some on-site advocacy meetings with decision makers. we had a meeting with Rwanda National Police within our partnership. So we had that meeting as we were having preparation for the UN Global Road Safety Week the first day of the UN Global Road Safety Week, and we were aiming to have to put some insights to the person who was going to present in the Waramutse Rwanda show, which happens every day on RTV at 7 a.m. So on Monday, on 17th May, one high official from the Rwanda National Police was part of that show, and so we had a meeting with them to give them some insight on the 30 km/h throughout our advocacy. And we also had a meeting with the UNDP office, and we were able to have Mr. Maxwell Gomera, who is the UNDP resident representative here in Rwanda. He was able to sign a support poster to support this ongoing campaign, and we were really happy to have had his support throughout this campaign. We also had a meeting with MINEMFRA, the transport division, which is the division that has the responsibility to enact road safety policies, regulations, and also laws. So we talked to them around the 30 km/h and also about our advocacy, trying to see the feasibility of that speed limit here in Rwanda and start the mechanisms that we believe we reach to the outcome we want, which is to have 30 km/h in school zones and also road traffic crash black spots that show the cause of road traffic crash being speeding. We also presented in the non-motorized transport working group meeting, which was organized by GGGI. And as you can see, we had some people also take part. The people who were part of the meeting also helped us take a few pictures that were circulated around on social media as part of our campaign. And also this webinar, which is part of our advocacy, we are still advocating for the 30 km/h, especially in those hotspots that I've already mentioned. And we believe that will reduce the road traffic injuries and also deaths here in Rwanda, not only of young people, but also other vulnerable road users. So the lesson we learned throughout our campaign was that despite COVID-19 restrictions, actually road safety advocacy can still be done and be effective, and it just needs to be adapted. So we're still learning from that, and we keep moving forward and do more advocacy as we keep moving. So I urge everyone who's within your capacity, please take part in advocating for safer roads here in Rwanda, worldwide. Please do your best. You can be an advocate. You can be a policymaker in your capacity. Just take part into ensuring road safety. Thank you so much. So we're going to have another presentation. This presentation is going to be on speed management. I've already taken you through what we were able to do as Healthy People Rwanda. Now we're going to immediately jump into the speed management presentation that will be given by Mr. Vedast. So Mr. Vedast is the transport planning consultant in ITDP, which stands for the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy here in Rwanda. And before joining the ITDP, Mr. Vedast was, he had worked in the city of Kigali, and he was engaged in different projects that were related to transportation planning, and served as the project manager for the feasibility study and preliminary designs of the BRT system here in Kigali. He also participated in international training as on comprehensible urban transportation planning held in Tokyo in 2018. And he is passionate about sustainable and reliable public transport. Without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Maka. Let me share his presentation. Mr. Vedast, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. Do you hear me too?
Yeah, sure. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm pleased to participate in this webinar, which was flowing the week that Hirwa already stated, which one already participated in. Then, Eris, if you don't mind, could you allow me to share my, I think it could be easy. Is it okay for you? If I can share from my side, I think it could be easy.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, thanks. You can give me the light then. Sorry, I can't. The host could allow if it's okay.
You still cannot be able to share?
Now I can. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
I've made you the co-host. I think now you can. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. I think now you can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Vedas, and thanks Hirwa for that kind of introduction. I will be presenting some brief on speed management. As stated, I stand for ITDP, which is an institute for transportation and development policy, and we're working worldwide to promote equitable and sustainable transport. When we say sustainability, we simply mean to minimize the impact of climate change and air pollution, mainly the one related with transport in general. And what we mean by equity, it's simply to provide transport services to make public transport services more safe, accessible to everyone. Everyone means high income people, low income community, women, children, the people with disability, anyone else, so that he can afford the transport. That was a bit brief on ITDP. And for this presentation, I will be giving a short brief on the current motor vehicle trend in Rwanda, the benefits that we can receive from having a reduced speed, and what we can do to achieve or to acquire those benefits. If you can see from the given table, which are taken from the Rwanda Revenue Authority database, you could see how the motor vehicle in Rwanda, there are increases in all kinds, from the motorbike, buses, or the big trucks, all the kind of motor vehicles, they keep increasing. And from your experience, especially the people who are familiar in Rwanda, you can calculate yourself how long it takes for having from our operating number system from AE to A to RAF now, everyone can estimate how long it takes. That explains how the motor vehicle trend is keep increasing a lot in the Rwanda. Not only in Rwanda, but more specifically in the city of Kigali. That is the figure where I want to share how the model share is. If you can see very well from the given data of for the 5 years, the motorcycle, more specifically for motorcycle taxi, they are more than 50% of the fleet that you have in Rwanda. And what you could see that is the word that we are saying today, which is those kind of increased number of motorcycles, and what is resulting in that are the number of accidents that are happening. From that given table, you can see how much is the number of accidents. From this very last line, you could see the year from 2012 to 2017, and you can see the number, the type of vehicles that participate in the accident. Of course, the less of the table, it means the number of persons who have been affected. You could see how the number was keep increasing from the year to year. And from the second row where I put in the red, you could see how the motorcycle, they have a very big number of intervention to the accident that are really happening. From this figure, I simply took the motorcycle and compared the total number of injured person vis-a-vis the type of the car which intervened in the accident. You could see how the motorcycle are hitting the people around the street in Kigali. If you could see very well, the motorcycle then in the red one, at least we could have them having as the half of the happened accident, they are related to the motorcycle. And honestly, everyone can confirm the speed is one of the cause of that accident. On the other side, if you could see from the transport model share in Kigali, you can see what you can simply define what are the main cause of the accident. If you can see where I stated NMTs, simply I mean the pedestrian, the people are walking on their foot, as well as the very limited number of existing cyclists. They only occupy 50% of the model share of that simply means, I want to explain in a very easy term, which is for the people that who are not familiar with transport things. Simply the people are using their foot and bike. They have a very big percentage. As you can see, more than 50%, they are those people. And the others, they are using the remaining type of motor vehicles, including private cars, motorcycle taxis, I stated, as well as public transport or buses. And this is what happened for our streets. There are absence of walkways, which are the reason for the figure that we saw before of the accident that happened. The people, they are seen to be mixed with the traffic. And if you can see, they are the existing oversized intersections. From those intersections, when you are going to cross, you are not going to know where you are going to cross. There is no safe marking or any other guidance. What is happening? You risk to get annexed that you are going to be hit by any kind of motor vehicles. Yeah, that is the reason why. That is what I was saying. You see, we are designing for cars. We are giving them extended intersection. We are giving them the very big light-off way, as the picture that I saw from the kid who are moving around the car. Then we are giving a less priority to the people who are walking and who are cycling. That is really what are causing much more accidents. And that is one picture of one place in Kigali. What you could see from this picture, everyone can analyze. Everyone on the webinar can say, this picture, show me this one. Maybe sorry for the one who can, for instance, observe their faces or their cars. But in transport-wise, you can give a different interpretation. One thing I made, the vehicle, they are favored. That is what I can say. On the corridor, they are moving, they have a priority. Also, the car parking, as you can see on the right side, they are also favored. You can park at your place. If you already parked, no one who is going to remove you. But the things I can say, the walking, it's not favored. For instance, if you are going to cross here, you know how much you are going to feel next, how much you are going to feel stress. If you are cycling, I'm not even sure if you are going to pass by this place. What happened? If you meet your friend in this place, you cannot talk with your friend. That is what happening. And also for the present, there are guys who are funding, some existing street funding, they are not also favored. And that is what resulting. Everyone who are commenting on social media is saying, for instance, let's extend our road. But if we do it, it's okay, but it will be short term. If we extend the road for a given time, of course, we will receive that speed. It's going to increase, but for a very limited time, it's not going to last. Some traffic conditions, they are going to happen. Actually, they are going to increase, as we saw. And the good thing is to favor the public transport. And that is a good example of what will happen in Tanzania. You can see that they provide the greenway walking for the storing, for the buses, and for the rest of car. Everyone has a space. That everyone is considered. The accident and all of the rest that we saw, they are not going to happen. And also, in addition to that, good, for instance, good example of what done for some part of Dar es Salaam, that is also what we learned from COVID-19. The people start thinking, why my car? Why my vehicle? That is the figure of what is happening. The existing road, they are now being restored to make the space for the people. You can see the place they are clean. Presidents from Berlin, Bogota, Paris, they have dedicated some kilometers for walking due to COVID. That's it, that the people now start thinking. I cannot say thanks to COVID, but we learn a lot for it, for our traffic and how we can manage the existing speed. Then from now on, from those kind of existing trend issues, what we learned from the existing situation, I can ask myself or asking everyone who are here today, why do we need to reduce the vehicle speed? That's the question everyone can ask. If you are joining and have your vehicle and want to move, for instance, from Nyabugogo to airport, everyone is asking, why do I need to reduce my speed? Simply, the answer is we have to slow the vehicle speed to save life. That is the very technical term of this webinar. If you can see from those research from UK Department of Transportation, you could see what happened with the speed. If the speed is 32 km/h to 48 to 68, and you could see how, by which percentage, which have been affected but with the accident or the vehicle movement. You could also see this is also the result of the research, how the injury happened. I thank Hirwa for the very beginning presentation he gave, which was self-explanatory for what happened. If you been beaten, hit by a car at high speed or a motorcycle taxi, it's very risky. But if you meet it at a very low speed, yeah, we can say some type of good stories. That is really what happened. If you're going with a very low speed, you have a very extended sight distance. You can look afar, you can take decision to stop, or you can say, I'm going to pass or do these things. But since you keep increasing the speed, your chance to look is going to be reduced. At 45, your cycle for living is very limited. Then at 60, this is what happened. If you're going to meet a kid who are going to go in, we are going to say the other stories. Now we can say, then what can we do to reduce the vehicle speed? If we have it, we need to move. We see that if we move at high speed, we are going to risk to have more different problems. We can change our mind in what we are designing. Honestly, it's an effort which has to be taken, not only with the people, the driver of cars or the government, the decision makers, or as well the pedestrian who are moving on the road, is the action to be taken by everyone. This is an example of New York, what was happened for this intersection. You could start to look like it's confusing, and it's driving, it's confusing people, they feel next to close. But when they restore the intersection to provide the walking line, there are much more traffic lines, which is the vehicle. And that is what you have to do. The speed limit police, they are happening here. Many of you, they are aware of what is called Sophia here. There is mobile stop where the speed has to be 40, more specifically for the city where there are many people that Liz was stating, we need to obey the bandit policy. We also need to respect the speed limit symbols. If you see those guys, you are going with a car, that tells you that they are students. You have to start respecting what is happening. And also, on part of the design of infrastructure, we have to correlate the speed limit symbol with the design infrastructure. You can see where this speed is. I don't know if you are driving your car on this roadway. You cannot say this is, it seems to be meaningless. That is the things we need to start to change so that we could comply with, of course, by walking, by respecting the life of also saving the life of the people that we say that they are losing their life each and every year. That is the other things that we also need to do. We need to start changing the way we used to design our crossing. Many of you know what we call dodan. Since they are less, it's a good deal because they're going to stop or reduce their speed, not only because some person they are crossing, but also because they are less. They can also suffer if they pass them by high speed. That is one of the good practices that could happen. If you can see that, also one example in Kenya where the people they can close, then this coming motorcycle rider is going to stop because he's not going to climb easily this less harm. We also need to design the streets which have what I could call slow zone. When to come up to the side of the road where the people they are crossing, we need to have them slow. That is an example where also it's in Nairobi, where they propose a street, but by respecting everyone. You can see we have trees. We all know the importance of trees. We have the people who are walking. We have the disabled guys who are walking, and everything is provided and it's healthy. And there is the on-street parking to the other side of the path. And for sure, if you're walking here, you're going to feel relaxed. Yeah, simply that's it, the thing we need to do. Each and every one, if you are driving, you need to think on pedestrian, also on cyclists. There are people. We need to think how could we restore the public transport. We need to have a fleet because fleet they are going to bring our goods, the food and what we need. And you have to move with our car or park them. That is how we need to take the order. If we are designing, we have to consider this kind of hierarchy, or if we are moving to the road, you have to respect the vulnerable people who are crossing, because to the end of that day, if the accident happens, as we saw before, those are the people who are classified as the most desirable one, they are the ones who are going to lose their life. That is the things that we really need to do. We could always have this in mind while we are driving or we are designing or we are respecting the binding policy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vedast, for such an insightful presentation on speed management. I think we're running out of time now. I'm going to immediately welcome Janine. Janine is the the project manager of the UN's Environment Program based in Nairobi, Kenya. And that program is part of the Sustainable Mobility Unit, which aims to create benefits for the environment, road safety, and accessibility by working with governments and other stakeholders to prioritize investment in infrastructure for people that walk and cycle. Her work is focused on sub-Saharan Africa and involves researching and prioritizing the needs of vulnerable groups and engaging with stakeholders to adopt and implement low greenhouse gas and sustainable transport strategies. She holds a master's in law and sustainable development from the University of Milan and a bachelor of law from the University of Pretoria. So Janine, welcome.
Thank you, Elise, and thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to be part of this session. I'm going to dive straight in because you mentioned that you have run a bit off, so I'll try and be brief. As Elise has mentioned, I work for the Share the Road program, which is based in the headquarters of the UN Environment Program in Nairobi, and we work towards investing in infrastructure for people who walk and cycle. We have three main dimensions, which is the environment, accessibility, and road safety. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk through firstly, air pollution, emissions in the environment, and then we'll ask the question, why 30 kilometers? Why is it relevant in the context of the environment? So to start off, I want to talk a bit about air quality. Poor air quality is considered to be the world's single largest environmental risk. Currently, according to the World Health Organization, it can be attributed to approximately 87% of premature deaths. And in Africa, and actually specifically in Rwanda, I read today that respiratory infections are the largest cause of death in children under 5 in Rwanda. So it's definitely a dire situation that we need to address quite urgently. And vehicle emissions are generally quite a large contributor to air quality standards. There's an excellent report that was issued in 2018. That's an inventory of sources of air pollution in Rwanda. And in it, they found that the main sources of anthropogenic air pollution, that is pollution caused by man, is road traffic, domestic fuel burning, and industry. So for sure, transport is on the agenda for air pollution. Now, I don't have a science degree, as you heard, so I've made this as simple to understand as possible because I need it to be simple to understand. But vehicle emissions and air pollution standards are often affected by these certain types of particles and elements. So we have nitrogen dioxide, we have carbon dioxide, and PM10 and PM2.5, which is particulate matter, which is tiny particles in the air that we breathe. These three meanies, I'll call them, are three of the main causes of poor air quality in our urban spaces. You can see nitrogen dioxide is mostly from fossil fuels and vehicles. Carbon dioxide, amongst other things, can present itself in traffic areas and enclosed spaces, specifically in underground tunnels and car parks. And then particulate matter is created from combustion, including vehicle engines and, amongst other things, mining and cooking. What was really shocking for me was to find that they did a 3-month study in Kigali in 2017, and they found that the levels of these two items, particulate matter 2.5 and 10, exceeded the World Health Organization standards 5 times. So it's really, in 2007, it was quite urgent, and right now, there isn't recent statistics on it, but certainly still very relevant and still very necessary to have a focus on this issue. So the recommendations to address air quality and emissions in Rwanda generally have a mixed batch of things, but specifically, they relate to transport. These are actionable items. So you'll see they apply strict import regulations on vehicles, invest in public transport systems, smooth traffic flows around traffic hotspots, and then also invest in public transport systems or reduce emissions from bus fleets. Yeah, I repeated 1 or 2 there, but they're important, so it's okay to say them twice. But what about 30 kilometers per hour? Where does that fit into this framework of actions against poor air quality? Well, the reality is that it slips into that recommendation, which was this one over here, smooth traffic flows around traffic hotspots. So setting a speed limit to 30 kilometers allows for easier moving and less starting and stopping, which is when there is the highest amount of emissions. And there's been a lot of research into understanding that moving from 50 kilometers even to 30 kilometers makes a significant difference in the emissions themselves, because the particulate matters are released at high temperatures in the combustion engine. So if you're moving slower, you're using less fuel, and you're also emitting less pollution into the air. There's a really interesting report by the European Environmental Agency, which could be really useful to read if you're interested in knowing more about that specifically. Then in terms of biodiversity and transport infrastructure, the more we accommodate speeding cars, the more we encroach in our natural environment. The need to construct larger stopping areas for cars going at high speed encroaches on our natural landscapes and forces us to use open space for road. So in an infrastructure sense, lower speed and more livable areas allow us to have more of a mixed type of environment in which there isn't a need to have an extra kilometer of road space for a car to stop effectively. Then in terms of big thinking and long-term thinking, this is something that's the most relevant, I think, for having a 30 kilometer speed limit, is we want to keep people walking and cycling. This is a graph here from the latest emissions gap report, which is published by the UN Environment Programme every year. And as you can see, this big red chunk over here is transport. It's one of the 6 priority areas going forward into the next decade. And we need to work very hard to reduce transport emissions. Now, we have a global car fleet that's expected to triple by 2050, and greenhouse gas emissions are growing from that sector faster than any other sector. Now, this is particularly relevant because in Rwanda, there is no age limit for used vehicle imports. And as a result, the emissions from vehicles are 1/4 higher than they are in Kenya. So, I mean, we're neighbors, we have similar, I say we, I'm not Kenyan, but I live here, it feels like home. Similar types of environments, similar types of regulations, but just making that simple decision on the age can have such a big impact. There is, however, a really good standard for vehicle imports in terms of new vehicles. That's the Euro 4, which has less emissions and less pollution. Now, why is this relevant? I think as Vedasta already pointed out, many people are walking in Kigali, many people are walking in Zanzibar, many people are walking in the cities of Rwanda. 52%. We want to keep them walking. We don't want them to buy a cheap polluting car the moment that they have the opportunity to. So Vedasta also said, why do we want to slow down? We want to save lives. But I would say, why do we want to slow down? We want to create environments in which people are not captive users, which means they're walking because they want to, not because they don't have any other choice. And that means having environments in which they feel safe to move, they feel safe to play, they feel safe to engage in their public spaces. And in the long term, yes, it's important to have a reduced speed limit for the emissions currently and the air quality standards currently, but we're only going to multiply the effects on the environment and on ourselves if we don't prioritize creating spaces that are safe to move in for people who are using these slower modes. So keeping people in cycling, I could go on about the benefits for ages. I think Vedasta also touched on them, so I'll be quick on it. It's just climate change, personal finance, accessibility, and the empowerment of vulnerable groups, just to name a few. There's a lot of good work happening in Kigali specifically on this. I'm sure you know about the Mbuga car-free area. There's also a lot of work in relation to the new transport policy and the development of spaces that are holistically more sustainable. We're also working with GGGI, and Lee mentioned that she went to the working group, which is really exciting, brilliant to hear. Our work is involved in taking vulnerable road users and communities, understanding what they need and linking them to decision makers, and ultimately taking that information and using it to make systematic investments in creating low speed zones and areas that are safe for people to move in. And that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janine, for thank you so much for your good presentation. was really insightful. So it's really good to have streets where people are feeling safe and they can walk and cycle. And that will protect our environment. You're definitely right. So we're going to go further and have another presentation about now the policies and laws around road safety. How are they enacted? How are they set and how they implemented here in Rwanda? So we're going to have Mr. Francois Zirikana from Minefra, who's a senior engineer, who's going to present about that. Let me share his presentation. Let me share my screen so that you can see his presentation. Before that, just a quick introduction of Mr. Francois. So this is Mr. Francois Zirikana. He's the state licensing compliance senior engineer in Minefra. And he has been working in road safety field since 2015. He received his master's degree in transport planning and intelligent transport systems from Newcastle University in the UK in 2017. And he holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the National University of Rwanda from 2012. During the decade, his work was focused on developing policies and legal tools, as well as cost-effective strategies for improving road safety. In that capacity, his primary partners were public entities and also NGOs. So welcome, Mr. Francois. So you can take us through the legal framework here in Rwanda. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, my name is Francois Zirikana, as it is said. I've been working with MINEFRA since 2015. So, the mandate of the Ministry of Infrastructure, the same ministry in charge of transport, is the development of policies, strategies, and legal tools, as well as monitoring their implementation. So before I start my presentation, I want to thank you very much, HPR especially, for organizing this seminar for advocating the reduction of the speed, because we have a very challenging situation now. The road users are claiming that you have to increase the speed, and safety-wise, you have to reduce the speed. So public awareness and advocacy is very important for us to be able to balance the needs of road users as well as preserving road safety. So Remy, can you go to next slide? Yeah, in fact, my presentation, I want to start by understanding the speed and its impact. In fact, when we develop or we prepare the policies and the legal tools especially on speed, it's very important that anyone who will be involving in the process has to understand the speed and its impact, so that setting the speed limits and all related provisions will be based on the factual and evidence-based proof. So we start by speed and impact, then we go to the policy and the legal provision of safety. I mean the current policy and the current laws. And then after we see the framework for setting speed limits, how after putting the speed limits in the policy and the legal tools, how practically the speed limits are set here in Rwanda. And then finally, we will see our current mechanism to enforce the speed limit set in legal provisions. Next. Yeah, now when we say the speeding does not really mean that you have to respect or you are exceeding the posted speed. If you have a very challenging road conditions and the weather conditions, and you drive fast, in that case, even if the speed limit is possibly 30 km/h, you are exceeding the speed because you have a challenging road condition and the weather situation that would force you to reduce the speed. So in fact, whether the speed is posted, you are driving, you need to be mindful that it's really necessary if there is any challenging situation to reduce the speed. Next. Then the speed. In fact, there is a speed and reaction time. We say in the best of conditions, the average time it takes for most drivers to process what is happening ahead is 1.5 seconds. In fact, when you are driving at any speed, in normal conditions, in good conditions, and there is a hazard ahead, so your reaction to brake, you will take 1.5 seconds. And then this will affect you at which distance your vehicle will stop. Next. Now, the more you drive faster, the more the stopping distance will be higher, which means if I'm driving at 30 km/h, if I brake, my braking distance, which will lead me to the stopping distance, will be 19 millimeters. Those are typical examples. Now you see on 60, if I realize that there is a hazard ahead of the road, and I react to process braking, I will stop at a distance of 56 meters, which means if there is someone crossing somewhere and I'm at 60 km/h, it is most likely that I will kill that pedestrian or that person crossing. So it is really, there is really a good correlation between the speed limit or the speed in which I'm traveling on and the stopping distance. The higher the speed, the higher the stopping distance, and the more probability to kill someone crossing. Next. Then, in fact, at any speed, the speed is correlated to human factor. The time we take to process what is happening ahead of your road, it has a relationship between your physical conditions and the mental conditions. So if you are tired, if you are drunkard, if you have other drugs, if you have any newer or physical or cognitive distraction like mobile phones, all those factors will contribute to the impact related to the speed you are traveling on. Next. Then, stopping distance, as I said, which means I'm braking, and before when I press the brake, the time from when I press the brake and where my vehicle will stop, that's the stopping distance. So the weather conditions and the road conditions and the tire conditions will affect that stopping distance, which means if I am sure that my tire, for example, are old, or there is weather or bad road conditions, even if there is a speed limit posted, I need to be mindful and be careful in how I slow down so that I reduce the impact that can cause my driving behavior. So next. Now, there's what we call the speed and the kinetic. And the kinetic energy means the energy produced when I am moving in motion in a vehicle in motion. So the faster I drive, the greater the severity of impact and energy that must be absorbed, which means the more you speed up, the more the energy absorbed is higher and the more the consequences that can be caused by the vehicle. Next. Now, I think we have seen this, but the most important, something that I want to emphasize is that this text on the left, drivers are twice as likely to kill a pedestrian on impact if they are traveling at 50 kilometers per hour and 40 kilometers. You see, when there is only a difference of 10 kilometers, you are most likely twice to kill a pedestrian, which means any increase of the speed can have great consequences on the life of pedestrian. Next. Then the speed impact affect how the features work. In fact, you know, we have vehicles, and the vehicles have some features that can reduce the impact of any accident, like airbags, seat belts, the crumble zones, and the rear beams to reduce the speed impact. The meaning here is that whether we are traveling at 30 kilometers per hour or 60 and 40, even our vehicle must be conceived in a way that they can be forgiving while involved in the road accident. Next. So that's the three things I was saying. The last one on the speed. We have the vehicle cohesion, we have the vehicle human cohesion, we have the internal cohesion. All those three type of crashes can really take away the level of people. Either you are a driver, you are a passenger, you are occupant, you are a pedestrian. All those three factors or type of collisions can be accelerated or increased by the speed. Then finally, back up and slow down, and your decision drive your safety. It means when you are taking decision to go fast or to slow down, your decisions are the one that will save your life or take away your life. So this was introduction to speed. Now, quickly, let's see our legal provision next. So in fact, as the process in Rwanda, before you develop a law, we need to have a policy. So we have a new developed transport policy that was approved by the cabinet recently. It is called the National Transport Policy and Strategy for Rwanda. So it has a different transport sector. We have railway, we have waterways, we have air transport, road transport, and the other technology like ropeways, personal rapid transit, or air drones, and so on. But now we are going to see the provision on road safety. I will try to be very fast. The National Transport Policy seeks to improve safety for all road users. So what are the provisions? Within cities and towns, street space must be designed so that it caters for all modes of transport, including pedestrian and cyclists. So in other provisions put in place is systematic traffic calming on a small street to reduce the motor vehicle speed. Provision number 3, they systematically separate pedestrian and cycle infrastructure from motor vehicle traffic on a larger street. Next. So design safer street by encouraging moderate vehicle speeds, accreditation of auto garages and the mandatory use of diesel garage by passenger service vehicles, transport infrastructure improvements, awareness activities, like the one we have now, such as safety education campaigns. So another one is updating import standard in ensuring strict vehicle inspection. So someone was saying that we don't have age limit yet, but we are mindful and we're in the process of adopting age limit as for harmonization of East Africa. So another one is updating import standard, ensuring, so that's why standardized driver training curriculum. That's another thing that we think can help us to improve the road safety. So another thing is the introduction of computerized and practical driving testing. This one also will help us to assess the driving skills before issuance of driving licenses. And the last on these items, the introduction of road safety cameras on the selected trains work nationwide. I think this one is already in place. Next. So now let's see the legal, that was the policy, now it's the legal part. We have the presidential order of 2002, the one having the speed provisions. In Rwanda, the maximum speed for any vehicle is 80 kilometers per hour, which means when you have your normal vehicle, you should not exceed 80 kilometers per hour. Of course, this is the maximum speed. It can be 60, 50, 40, 30, depending on the road conditions in the proximity. So that's countrywide. When you come to the agglomerations, cities and towns, the maximum is 30. That's also the maximum. It can be 40, 50, 30, 20, or even 10 for where you have works. For example, road conditions and so on. As I was saying, the governors can reduce or can preset the lower speed limits in agglomeration public ways. So those are the maximum, but depending on the condition and the environment, those speed can be reduced at any safer speed. So next. Then how speed limits are set? When you have laws, you have policies. Now how are they set? There are the key consideration when you were setting the speed limits. The number one is the road geometry, number two is the intersections, number three is the road environment, means pedestrian, cycles, walking zones, the school zone, then the type of roads. So you can have the motorists, you can have the pedestrian, you can have for example, the people with disabilities, all those type of users influence you to really select the speed limits. Then, how is it done here in Rwanda? We have a joint team of MINEFRA, RTD, Rwanda Transport Development Agency, local government, either the state of Kigali or any district, and the police. That is a permanent team. So we do annual assessment of the speed limits and then update them according to the changes that may have been happening around the road. So next. I think this is the last slide. Now, when the speeds are set, as the process described, we then enforce or manage that speed. So what are the measures in place now? We have the speed humps, we have the rambo strips, we have speed cameras, both fixed and the mobiles. We have a speed governors in the passenger buses and the freight cars. We have a public awareness system to tell people that driving fast is very dangerous. If all those measures have been applied and the people still overspeed, we fine them. Next. Thank you very much for attention. I tried to be very fast for the time to save time. So if there is any question, I think we have the session for questions. So thank you very much for your understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. François Zirikana, for your very nice presentation. We're now going for the questions Q&A session. We're going to start with the first question that was addressed to Vedas. I don't know if he's still here. Vedas, can you hear me?
Very well.
So the first question was addressed to you, and it said, you've showed that there are 52% pedestrian trips and also 17% public transport in one of your presentations. So one of the participants wanted to know if within the 17% of public transport, does that include one or two legs of walking trips as such that pedestrian trips would be closer to 70%? Does that make sense to you?
I think I will answer his or her question. I don't know the one who asked the question, but the principle is during the traffic survey, what have been catered for to draw this figure for the model share, it was the trip, it was to count the people who was walking to their working place. Just it comes the idea of the purpose of the trip. But as far as we know, for the people to move from a living place to the bus stop or from the very last terminal to the working place, namely as first and last terminal, they need to walk. Yeah, in that sense, her concern, it makes a lot of sense because all of the people who are even riding buses, they are walking from their home to the bus stop for the very first mile connectivity, and they're walking from the bus stop to the last mile connectivity. But more specifically for those taken data, there was linked with the purpose of the trip. If you're walking from your origin to the destination where there is your work, then I don't know if I'm going to confirm that his assumption make a lot of sense, but it makes a sense in the form of if you say that the people with public transport, they work for first and last mile. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I can see there's another question that was addressed to Janine. And it said, what do you see as the main hindrance to the adoption of 30 kilometers per hour? And what should be done to overcome them?
Hi, thanks, Elise. I did respond in the chat, but I'll just add to that. I think our thinking about cities is fundamentally flawed. We prioritize cars over people, and we have a culture of thinking cars are sexy and cool and deserve more road space than anyone else. So it's about shifting that thinking in individuals, shifting that thinking in policy and decision makers, and also shifting that thinking for engineers and people who are responsible for shaping the way our cities look and feel.
Thank you so much, Janine. I think there are no more questions.
Elise?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I have a question to Francois. Yeah, I'm wondering at the level of the ministry, how do you currently balance the pressure from people who want higher speeds and the safety which require lower speed? Because we've seen country when the cameras was being put in place, many people claimed on the social media that the speed limit is low, and afterwards we've seen the limits being changed, most of them to 60. So I'm wondering how do you rebalance that? And I think the pressure comes from the low number to be at 60, especially where the don't you think it's controversial?
Thank you very much. Let me start by the first one. So I think you have been in this country for long. So no any pressure can put the government to do what you want, which means whether that the speed is raw or the camera are finding you, as long as the government is doing what is good, we can never change a good decision for people's pressure. So why? Since people have been complaining, we did not remove the cameras, we did not remove them, and where the speed are off to be as they are now, we not change. But as we do a regular assessment, if there is a need and there's a scientifically proven, we can change. By that change will not be coming from the pressure, it will be coming from the evidence-based data so that we can update. But no any pressure can make us changing a good decision that is saving lives of our people. So that's the question number one. Question number two, when we say agglomeration in our legal tools, it does not mean the whole city of Kigali has to be in agglomeration, because in the city we have where you have residential areas, working space, and the school zones. So when we say agglomeration, it means where we have the high density of traffic, people moving. So that's the meaning. Agglomeration does not mean the whole city. It means areas, what we can call them like working and home zones, where the streets are designed for people, not for vehicles, which means the priority, if you are driving in those areas where you have high density people, you need to be mindful that road is for the pedestrians, not for vehicles. You need to be patient and give a space for pedestrians. But when we say agglomeration, does not mean the whole city of Kigali is an agglomeration, because there is where we have a clear distance, where you have a good sight distance. So that's what I can say. That's why you will see where we have a 60 in the state of Kigali. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I can see Mizero Olivier has raised his hand, and that will be the last question that we'll take.
Thank you. My name is Olivier Mizero. I'm a HPR volunteer from University of Rwanda. So my question goes to Ms. Jenen. I would like to ask, when you reduce the speed of a vehicle, it goes with the increase of road jams and the cost of the time people are using it change. Example, when me I'm a worker of any company, then when I'm supposed to reach to the company site at 8 a.m., when the speed of my vehicle is reduced, it will take me the more time to reach there, and my company officers will blame me. And how will we convince our government, apart from that kind of issues we are facing, to reduce the speed of the vehicles? And yes, I know the high speed it goes with more accident and other things behind, but also the government or other people in charge, they also see on that things where the time and the jams will increase. How are we going to convince the government and the people in charge of those things to accept our recommendations? Thank you.
I think you've raised a really interesting point, Mizera. I hope I pronounced your name correctly there as well. As somebody who is chronically late, I know that when I had my car before, I'd hop in and I'd go much faster than I should. And so I know that feeling of needing to get somewhere quickly, and that's what cars enable us to have. And that's sometimes very useful. And it's not to say that we need to be going slow all of the time. We have highways connecting cities. Imagine if you were to drive from Nairobi to Mombasa at 30 kilometers an hour the whole way, it would be a nightmare. The thing is, we need to have spaces that are appropriately allocated speed limits. So I would say start with schools, start with hospitals, start with shop fronts and areas where there's already high pedestrian movement, and then allocate certain spaces in the city where you can go fast and where you have to go slow. One of the issues as well is that our cities are not really compact enough. So you're traveling far distances to get to work because maybe the area where your office is doesn't have affordable housing, or maybe you live outside of the city and you commute in every single day. There's a mixed methods approach in addressing this problem. I wouldn't want you to be late for work. I wouldn't want anyone to be late for work, but it's about designing the city in such a way that where it's appropriate, we go slow, and the networks of the streets allow you to go fast where it's safe to do so. Of course, I also want to say, if we could chuck in some public transport in there, that would be really great, because then that would ease up the congestion. Everybody moves slowly, everybody moves quicker, if that makes sense. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much, Janine. So we're going to have 1 minute for our speakers for anything you want, a take-home message you want to give to our participants today. So we'll start with Vedast, then Janine, and then Francois. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. The one point I can make is that I stated from the beginning that we need to reduce speed, save life, and acquire all the benefits that then already stated, but let's reduce speed and save life. Thanks.
All right, I would say it's difficult to have just one sentiment, but put people first. And that doesn't mean hating on cars. It just means understanding that some people, when they move through the city, are more vulnerable than others and need more protection and more attention. So yeah, put people first. And also, I don't know if I'll get another opportunity to speak. So I just want to say thank you so very much for having us here and having the space to have these important conversations. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to contribute to the awareness to reduce the speed. So simply I would say, let's work together to tell people that it's better to be late 1 minute instead of spending 6 months in the hospital. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you so much to our participants. It was really nice and vibrant audience. Thank you so much, Dr. Innocent Zaimana, our president. Everybody, thank you so much. I can see more questions coming in, so I'm just going to type in the email of our organization, and then you can send there some of the questions that are remaining popping up that we can't keep covering because we are running out of time. So thank you so much. Yeah, and that's it. Let's keep ensuring that our roads are safer. Thank you so much.